I am joined by intellectual property lawyer and entrepreneur Ozelle Martin, who is going to help us unlock some of the secrets behind the importance of intellectual property and safeguarding our work. Ozelle, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Can you start by giving us a little bit of your history, like what prompted you to pursue this type of law?
I think it started when I was an entrepreneur myself. I had a t-shirt line in college where I started making t-shirts with popular like Caribbean sayings and slangs on them. And I realized that some of the slangs that I came up with, I totally like made up, but they were relevant, culturally relevant to the Caribbean. And then someone stole my intellectual property. At that time, I was pursuing a bachelor's degree in legal studies at St. John's University, but I don't think that I was sure of what area of law I wanted to practice just yet. I was toggling back and forth with like family law, a bit of intellectual property, maybe like mergers and acquisitions, but I think when I realized that how mad I was when someone stole my creative work, I said, okay, I think I want to be an intellectual property lawyer.
Tell me a bit about the journey.
Well, I obtained my bachelor's degree at St. John's University in New York. Afterwards, I pursued a master's in advertising and public relations at Florida International University. And then I obtained my Juris Doctor at the University of Maryland School of Law. I thought that it was important for me to pursue my master's in advertising, branding, public relations, things of that nature, so that I can be somewhat of a unicorn and have a holistic outlook on the creative and legal side of branding.
Based on your experience and expertise, what are some of the more common mistakes that creatives make here in the Caribbean as it relates to protecting their intellectual property?
Not protecting at all. I guess that is the biggest one. And also not seeking legal counsel before the creative process begins. Very often we see that they only realize the legal repercussions of like coming up with like a descriptive mark or using other people's intellectual property when the act has already been done. So I think that it is important for creators to be proactive in seeking legal counsel when it comes to their creations.
Okay. The carnival, I know you have your hands in carnival as well, and the carnival is often argued that it's very easy to copy or be inspired by, because they like to say that, be inspired by the work of others. How do you draw the line between being inspired by someone saying they're inspired by the work that you do, or in your opinion, like copying, ripping off stuff that you created?
Well, for us, we try to avoid that because we want originality, there's a very thin line, but I think we try our best to ensure that we're coming up with very unique pieces. I mean, unfortunately, costume designs and things of that nature cannot be protected because they're viewed as functional, but we try our best just to deviate from anything that we've seen previously.
Okay. Shifting gears just a little bit. What, in your opinion or in your experience, are some of the biggest challenges facing creatives, particularly in the Caribbean?
All right, it's probably a lack of funding for their work. A lot of, people have some grand ideas, but they may not have the adequate funding to launch. And I think we can, probably do a bit better with having like maybe venture capital firms or making them more knowledgeable of where they can find funding, grants, things of that nature. I think that's probably the biggest problem.
Okay, St. Kitts and Nevis and the wider Caribbean is known for its rich cultural heritage. How could creatives avoid being pigeonholed? And how could we find areas for, for further growth and development without being forced to fit ourselves into circles that might not necessarily fully encapsulate what we are, what we're trying to do?
I think that might begin with the mind. When I had my keynote speech, I spoke about how important it is to push boundaries. I think very often we're pigeonholed because we may be afraid of what others think, or we are subscribing to the limits others may have placed upon us, and even those that we may have placed upon ourselves. And so I think that it begins in the mind that we should not be afraid to push boundaries. We want to do something groundbreaking. Who doesn't want to be a game changer, right? And so if you have a grand idea, feel free to pursue it. Understand that you're not only changing or transforming your work, but you're also transforming the world around you. But I understand, because I'm there very often where I'm afraid to take that leap. But for me, it always begins in the mind. I always say I go through like 10 rounds of self-doubt before I launch something. But you just have to get there mentally.
But how do you get there mentally? Yesterday I was speaking with Simon Frederick and Justin Porter, and they were sharing a little bit about their individual struggles with imposter syndrome. And that's something that plagues creatives regardless of what industry you're in. What has been your experience with that, and how have you been able to, if not necessarily overcome it, but deal with it?
I think sometimes sharing your ideas with trusted advisors, we're human beings. Very often we just need some validation. Sharing your ideas, and someone would, encourage you, like, hey, of course this is a great idea. Why are you so afraid to launch it? I totally agree with sharing your ideas. I think that helps a ton.
Okay, again, shifting gears just a tad. What advice do you have for creatives about building a brand that stands out? It's a competitive world, regardless of what industry your creativity falls within. How do you stand out?
It starts with being unique, trying to see what problems you can solve. It starts with, you stand out first with your name, determining what makes your brand unique. I always encourage them to find their unique value proposition. I think you gain a lot of clarity when you understand how you are different, because then you can communicate it to your audience a bit better. I mean, everything won't be groundbreaking, won't be transformational. Everything won't be like that, but it doesn't mean that your brand is not unique. I think we have to understand that sometimes we are our own superpowers, that sometimes because you are behind the brand, that's what makes it different.
How important is collaboration among creatives?
Very important. I think that collaboration breeds growth. It is through a lot of our partnerships with others that we've been able to extend into like other markets, things of that nature. So I think that it's very important. Sometimes we tend to think that growing is typically just adding a new product or a new service, but sometimes it's just collaborating with someone else and extending into their market.
This Creative Economy Power Arts Convention has provided a platform for creatives here in St. Kitts and Nevis to interact with, be inspired by creatives who are at the top of their game. How important do you think events of this nature are, and what do you think the impact of it would be?
Yeah, I think that it's very important because it allows us to share ideas. Apart from just holding seminars, I think one of my favorite parts have been creators coming up to me just to share their ideas. As I said, we are human beings, even getting validation for their ideas and being told like, yes, it's good enough, keep going. Yes, your idea is worthy, keep going. Sometimes just being in the same space as others, because very often we may be sharing our ideas but not in the correct space. And sometimes they may be shot down. Well, you want to do that? I think it's don't need that. Or I think it's too small for that. But then when you're around like-minded individuals who know what it takes to launch something successful, something big, something different, something that a lot of people might not understand, but only they do, I think that they can definitely benefit from being around people who think just as big as them.
I had the pleasure of conversing with a couple of convention attendees yesterday, and one of them mentioned to me that one of the highlights of his experience so far has been hearing these world-class creatives be vulnerable and open up about the struggles they have faced. Are you willing to share some of the struggles that you have encountered in your journey?
Yes, sure. I was sharing with them when I wanted to start Ultra Carnival and I wanted to bring a new and dynamic experience, make the carnival experience more inclusive. I was told that there wasn't a space for that. People just want to jam. They don't really care about having more food, diverse music. They don't care about all of that. They just want to jam. So it was definitely shot down. But I knew what I wanted out of a carnival experience, and I feel as if others wanted it as well. So people will speak a lot of doubt over your dreams, but I think that you'll have to have tunnel vision and understand that it's also recurring. It's going to come every step of the way. So you're going to be constantly in a state of overcoming.
And what is your secret for silencing the noise, especially when you, as it relates to a new venture, stuff that's already developed and has already proven to be successful? I mean, it's easier, but when it's something new, and as you mentioned, something groundbreaking, how do you ignore the noise and push through?
Well, I could get very cerebral. If I believe in something, I believe in it. Like, I mean, that's a gift and a curse, right? Where you go forth no matter what. But and that could be really just an individual trait, but that many people have as well. But sometimes you just have to go forth and in what you believe in. If you think it's gonna work, your mind is going to power it to work.
What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew earlier on in your journey?
Good question. I think just what I said previously, that the self-doubt is something that's you're going to encounter every step of the way. It's not just when you begin. It's also when you're thinking about different improvements. Every step of the way, you're always in like a perpetual state of like doubt overcoming, doubt overcoming, doubt overcoming. And it's just a part of the process. It's not that you're weak or anything of that nature. You're going to have those moments, but I think your true strength lies in your ability to constantly overcome.
Ozelle, you've done a lot, you've accomplished a lot, you're still doing a lot and working to accomplish a lot. What part or what facet of what you do you find most fulfilling?
I think speaking to creators and learning about their businesses as an intellectual property is very fulfilling. I love to know your why. Why did you start? What do you think, what kind of impact you think you're making? I think I enjoy learning about people's why they started a particular business, especially when it's very unique to me or something that I've never heard before. I want to know why you started. I also like learning about people's names. How did you come up with your business name? Learning about that is a pretty fulfilling experience. As it relates to Ultra, nothing beats seeing the costumes on the road on parade day. After everything that you've been through, seeing it all come together, seeing people have fun. I think we always think that it's just a costume. We don't think about the psychological impact of mass, how beautiful people feel, what it does for their self-esteem and their self-confidence when they feel and look beautiful in their costumes. People have shared that with me. Some people said the only time I feel great is when I'm on the road. That's kind of sad to hear, right? But then you think about, wow, that's the impact of mass transcending a mere costume. We always think like, oh, this amount of money just for a costume, you don't know what that does for someone. Yeah.
What is one of the biggest misconceptions you've had to dispel when interacting with people as it relates to intellectual property and protecting one's intellectual property?
One of the biggest misconceptions is probably that you don't need it. Especially in a smaller island, they think that they don't need it. Nobody is watching, things of that nature. They could just slide under the radar. But I think if you put so much time, energy, and effort into creating the brand of your dreams, why wouldn't you protect it?
And I was just reminded of an interesting conversation I had with a business, which of course will remain unnamed. We had posted something on our Facebook page and they took it. They didn't share it. So like they saved the photos and they reposted it to their individual Facebook page. So when they were contacted and said, hey, we said, hey, you can't do that. They said, well, it's on Facebook.
That too. That anything on Google, anything on social media is in the public domain. But you always have to think about who owns that work that you are using. But that is a huge misconception. Oh, I got it off of Google. Someone owns it. There's a high chance that someone owns it.
Shifting back to Ultra a bit, when you do your pre-carnival show to announce or to reveal your costumes, do you guys have issues and how do you deal with it if it is an issue? People taking your photos and not sharing your content, but the same thing, taking it and reposting to their pages, or probably using it for financial gain, like advertising, laying claim to it where they had no claim. They're not responsible for it at all.
Yeah, I don't mind people sharing it for, personally sharing it with their social media platforms because, I believe in the power of 1,000, that every person on social media probably has 1,000 friends. And so if you share it, just to share the beauty of the costume, I'm totally okay with that. What I'm not okay with is when you put our models or our costumes on your advertisements. And you didn't ask us, or maybe you don't even sponsor us. So I'm not okay with that. And sometimes I definitely would issue a cease and desist letter. People would say, oh, she's difficult to work with. No, you're using my intellectual property.
Okay, and how was that met with? Was the general response to things like that, especially here in a market as small as St. Kitts and Nevis? You mentioned they might say that you're difficult to work with. Does that impact your business at all?
No, it doesn't impact our business because I tend to approach it in a very amicable way. I'm not going to try to, be very combative or anything of that nature. I am also here to educate, to help you understand, like, even though it's online, that doesn't mean that it's in the public domain and free for all to use, especially for monetary or commercial reasons.
What are some of the key considerations for creatives who are hoping to protect their intellectual property? Like, let's say, again, people might assume I can't afford a lawyer, or this is still very small scale, so I don't need a lawyer at this point in my journey.
Yeah, no business is too small. As long as you're in business, I do think that you should seek the counsel of the lawyers. I also think that the onus is on all law firms to, play their role in ensuring that our creators are educated and know that they are available to assist as well. Probably having different price points for small businesses. I mean, I do that, right? Where you make sure that you have a package for small businesses so that they know that you're willing and able to help them. I think most of them just don't know where to go, or where to start, or which law firm offers what services, or we just assume that all lawyers are expensive, but they may have a package that caters specifically to small businesses, and they understand your pain points, that maybe your budget may not be as high, and this is something that they can offer you. But I'm not sure why we don't see a lot more law firms offering. It could be that St. Kitts may have particular advertising rules or rules against attorney advertising, but I do think that it is something that our creators can benefit from, knowing just where to go in the first instance.
Okay, good point, and something for me to look into for real, those laws concerning attorney advertising. A common theme that has been raised throughout my time here for the Creative Power Arts Convention is a lot of creatives are forced to work at 8 to 4 or 9 to 5 to fund their passion, which is their outlet for their creativity. Given that you do so much, how do you find time to do it all?
The time. I that's something I struggle with. Right, I do try my best to manage my time, but I think specifically between 9 and 6, that is for wearing my lawyer hat. And then after that, about between maybe, and that's for calls, consultation calls. And then I take a little break between 7 to maybe 11. That's my time for Ultra. Yeah.
What is the highlight of your career to date? Or what was one moment that you realized that, yeah, I'm actually successful, I'm doing the thing?
Yeah. My highlights when I won my first argument, and then never losing an argument. I do have a 100% success rate, and so that is absolutely a highlight of my career. I also think when I was featured in Essence magazine and Sports Illustrated, that was very big for me. But I think the highlight of my career is my success rate. Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's no easy feat at all.
It's not.
And what do you think, to what do you credit your success? What's the secret behind your success?
Creativity. Even in law, I tend to get very creative with my arguments. One time I had an office action. So this is when the United States Patent and Trademark Office claims that there's something wrong with the application that you filed. And in that application, the examining attorney was claiming that I did not state that there was a Spanish word in the trademark. However, the word was not Spanish because the Spanish word does not have an accent on it. But this one had an accent, and my client added it for stylistic reasons. And so I had to dive in to Spanish grammar rules. And that was a creative part of my argument. And I just like drafting the arguments. Like, when I approach law and ultra as like an athlete, just how you prepare scouting, knowing about the examining attorney that you have before you, understanding what wins with them. And so my aunt, Patricia Martin, she used to be a Spanish teacher, so I ran it by her. I said, in fact, this is not a Spanish word, right? And she was like, no, because the Spanish word doesn't have the accent. I said, exactly. This is my argument.
That's amazing. Your friends must hate to get into disagreements with you.
Well, I'm not argumentative.
Okay.
People think because you're a lawyer, you like to argue. I am persuasive. I will try to get my point over, but I am not argumentative. No.
As we prepare to wrap up, given the opportunity to address creatives here in St. Kitts and Nevis and across the region, people who might not have had the opportunity to sit in on any of your sessions, what would you say to them in pursuit of their dreams, their creative dreams? What advice do you have for them?
I would say once you believe in it, just do it. It might sound very simple, but I think a lot of us struggle with just starting. And so sometimes we just need to know that it is okay to start. You will, no matter what doubts you may have, no matter if people are speaking doubts into your dreams, if you think there are certain limits imposed upon you, just do it. It may sound very simple, but a lot of people just don't begin.
Thank you so much, Ozelle.
Thank you.
I'm wishing you continued success in everything that you do. And guys,
you.
You're most welcome. That brings us to the end of our conversation for today. A reminder that the Unlocked series continues tomorrow. I am Dion Baptiste Clark, wishing you a good afternoon.